Om Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 26 to 30.
श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्ये इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपो यज्ञाः योगयज्ञास्तथा परे स्वाध्यायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च यतयः संशितव्रताः अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेऽप्येते यज्ञविदः यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः.
The significance of this portion, this 12 yajnas, we call this portion in the 4th chapter as 12 yajnas. Now, why this portion is particularly important is because it gives a subjective application of an objective ritual. In fact, all rituals, whatever religions it may be, any ritual is meant for subjective application. It is something that you need to apply it at the mental level. It is shown externally, so it is easier to understand, it's easier to visualize it. So the whole concept of yajna, the fire ritual, is the offering of one's ego and egocentric desires. You're attached to your ego, you're attached to your desires. You sacrifice. What are you supposed to sacrifice? Your own ego and egocentric desires into the fire. Fire represents an ideal. When you focus on an ideal beyond your self-centered interest. See, we use the word higher ideal. What is meant by higher? Higher means less selfish. You're thinking about yourself all the time is self-centered. When you dedicate it to an ideal, which is what is the fire, so that ideal burns your ego. It consumes your desires. So it gives a practical method on how to reduce your ego and desires. See, the problem is people nowadays, not only in India, all parts of the world, they are in the dark ages. The way they're doing the rituals is all obsolete. The Bhagavad Gita is a modern text. They are giving us a modern way of doing it. And what are people in the world doing today? Obsolete idea of a ritual. Oh, if I do this, God will come and bless me. That is the level people are at. How can they understand the Bhagavad Gita? It's impossible. So Bhagavad Gita is meant for intellectuals, those who are able to conceive higher ideals in life. So what is that higher ideal here is a cause beyond yourself. Any cause beyond yourself, if you work for that cause, it will help to reduce your ego and egocentric desires. So that's the practice. It's a very practical method, what they are recommending. What should you do? See, this is what is karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Karma yoga is acting in a spirit of service and sacrifice. Now, the application of it is going to be given 12 types of sacrifices, 12 applications of this concept of yajna. I didn't mention in the last class, just to make sure that you all have got it, because once you get this basics, then you'll be able to apply all of it in the same way. Now, the two essential aspects, the two key aspects of this fire ritual are the offering and kindling. It's called ahuti in Sanskrit. Ahuti is the offering. It's not throwing. You don't throw stuff into the fire. You don't chuck it into the fire. You offer it into the fire. The offering is ahuti, and when any substance is offered into fire, the nature of fire is it shoots up. It takes whatever you're offering, almost acknowledge, thank you. It shoots up. That is what we call as kindling. You're kindling that fire. So you're offering the grains, you're offering whatever you can afford to offer, you offer, and the fire shoots up to acknowledge the offering. It is also taken as a blessing that fire god is blessing. So samidha is the kindling. Ahuti is the offering. Two key aspects of this ritual. See that on the screen. Two key elements of yajna. Ahuti, offering, samidha, kindling. Now, what you need to understand is as you're going through life, whatever you're doing, you're driving the car, you're working on the computer, you're spending time with the family, you're going on a holiday, you're taking a flight, any action you do, you need to incorporate these two facets, offering and kindling. If you can do that, then you have converted the action into a yajna. So, how to convert your day-to-day actions into yajna? Find out what you're offering and what is being kindled. See, for example, now in this classroom, if you can convert this class into a yajna, so you are offering your ignorance. What is kindled is knowledge. You come to this classroom with an open mind, say, I don't know, I want to learn. So you're offering your ignorance. And as you learn, your knowledge is kindled. But if you don't offer your ignorance, your knowledge will not be kindled. For example, you bring a friend to this class A fellow says, what is it behind? What is all these things? You understand? He is not interested in learning. He just come because you invited him. So if he's not offering his ignorance, his knowledge will not be kindled. So the kindling is a result of the offering. Whatever you offer will result in the kindling. You offer ignorance, knowledge gets kindled. I don't know your offering. I know gets kindled. So in verse 25, we just looked at that verse. Now, what did we learn in verse 25? I'm reading that verse again. Some yogis perform sacrifice to gods. Some yogis in this context means spiritually inclined people. Those who are spiritually inclined, various categories are there. One type of spiritually inclined people, they perform sacrifice to gods. Then the second type of people, he says, others perform sacrifice by offering sacrifice itself into the fire of Brahman. See, the overall understanding of this yajna, what is the overall understanding of this yajna? It is based on the three transactions of life: receipt, reaction, response. You're receiving perceptions, you're receiving stimuli from the world all the time. As you're receiving the stimuli, you convert the perception into a yajna. Similarly, you are reacting with it internally. See, the reaction internally is based on your vasanas, on your desires. If you have desires, there's a reaction. If there is no desire, there is no reaction. So all stimuli doesn't give rise to a reaction. If there is a desire, there'll be a reaction. If there's no desire, there's no reaction. So people who say, oh, I'm so agitated, I'm so disturbed, means what? Too many desires. So you're reacting and reacting and reacting. All that reaction is causing that stress. So first is the receipt. Second is the reaction, how to convert that reaction into a yajna. Third is the response that you give back to the world, which is proportional to the reaction. As your reaction, so the response. You don't like meeting a person. You don't like meeting that person. Wherever the person is, you want to avoid the place. You don't want to meet the person. You dislike a person. But the person runs a successful business and you have a son and the son wants to join the company. You understand? Very successful business, it'll be a good job for the son. You hate that fellow, you know. So the sight of him produces an agitation, a reaction. Reaction is a hatred. So your intellect says, listen, just swallow the pride. Go and meet him for the sake of the son. Just go. You understand? So what happens, though there is a reaction of dislike, it is neutralized by the intellect. And intellect says, no, no, no. Hang on, hang on. Leave it, leave it. Don't get into all that. Try and make a relationship with him. Try and relate with him for the sake of the son. So you go there, you approach him, you talk to him, and then get your son into the company. So you can manage the reaction. What I'm trying to say is your response is not directly based on the reaction. So the reaction could be negative, but your intellect can soften it. The intellect can convert it. You put on an act. You understand? Internally, you're not interested in that fellow. You're just putting on an act to get a job done. So response is based on how well you're able to utilize your intellect. If you're not using the intellect, you're impulsive. Whatever the mind feels, you act on the mind. You become an impulsive person. So see that the traffic of life, the three transactions, you're receiving these stimuli through the organs of perception. Five organs of perception: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. The world is entering you through these organs of perception. Reaction is happening at the level of mind and intellect, which is what I described with an example. Then you're responding through what? Through the organs of action. Five organs of action. You're responding back to the world. This is going on all the time. Receipt, reaction, response. Receipt, reaction, response. So all the 12 yajnas fit into one of these three. It's either based on receipt or on reaction or response. So, of all these 12 yajnas, any actions you do in this world, broadly speaking, could be done for two goals, two ideals. I told you fire represents ideal, it represents a goal. So, all the actions you're doing in the world can fit into two ideals: absolute ideal and relative ideal. Absolute ideal means goal of self-realization. That is absolute ideal. Relative ideal means any goals in the world. So broadly speaking, you can aspire for these two, which is what is indicated in verse 25. He says two types of yogis, he says two types of spiritual people. First category, he says, sacrifice to gods. They are those who follow relative ideal. Gods represent limited ideals. So first, this is the first yajna. First yajna is limited ideals. I gave the examples. A person wants to eradicate hunger. He wants to eradicate poverty in the world. He's working morning, noon, and night to achieve that. Another person works for animal welfare. Another person works to remove corruption. All these are relative ideals because they are all within the terrestrial world. So when a person acts to achieve any of these things, they have to give their body, mind, intellect, all their equipments for the sake of that cause. The whole personality they have to give to be able to achieve that. Even an athlete has to do that. You understand? Physical, body, mind, intellect, everything they've got to dedicate to achieve that. So the offering in terms of a relative ideal, what are you offering? You're offering your body, mind, intellect. You're offering your perceptions, emotions, thoughts. See, the players, tennis players are playing French Open. Then they'll come and play the Wimbledon. You understand? So all these tennis players, what are they doing? They've given up their whole life for the sake of tennis. Their body, mind, intellect, they've given up for the game. So you're offering your body, mind, intellect. What is it you're kindling? You're kindling happiness. When you work for a relative ideal, a goal, it provides you with that happiness. You get that satisfaction. So offering and kindling, that's the first yajna, which is the yajna of relative ideal. This is not difficult. Hmm? When I say that, what do you understand? Next thing, what I'm going to say is going to be difficult. You understand? So this is not difficult. Now, the next thing is absolute ideal, which is the goal of self-realization. We understand what self-realization is, but the way they have presented this in this verse, the interpretation of it is fascinating. So the second part of verse 25, he says, others perform sacrifice by offering sacrifice itself in the fire of Brahman. Do we have that verse? Can you show them verse 25? The translation of the verse. There. That's it. See, first line, some yogis perform sacrifice to gods. That is first yajna number one, which is limited ideals. The second line, others perform sacrifice. How do they perform sacrifice? By offering sacrifice. They offer sacrifice itself in the fire of Brahman. This indicates absolute ideal, the second yajna. Now, this sounds a little complicated. What does it mean, offering sacrifice itself? Now, what it means is, as a human being, every one of us, all human beings, have a capacity to give. You have a capacity to share. You have a capacity to sacrifice. No other creature can do that. All other creature, they've got a built-in nature. They don't have a choice to give or take. Say a dog is loyal. You understand? The dog is loyal, but the dog cannot be disloyal. It can't choose to be disloyal. It is designed to be loyal. Even if the fellow is a criminal, the dog will be loyal to the criminal. You understand? It can't think. It can't decide, no, 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 I don't want to be loyal to this fellow. It can't. So animals don't have a choice. Whereas a human being has a choice whether to give or not to give, to sacrifice or not to sacrifice. You understand? So, what makes you a human being is that capacity to sacrifice. It is that capacity to sacrifice that makes you a human being. In the previous chapter, in the 10th verse of chapter 3, Krishna said, there was a verse where he said, the creator in the beginning, when he created this world, when he created humanity, what did the creator do? He's just dramatizing it, in that verse. He's saying the creator, when he created mankind, he said, oh, I'm giving you this gift. I'm giving you this gift. When he created humans, he said, I'm giving you this gift. With this gift, may you achieve success. You're wondering, what is this gift? I have not got any gift, So actually, we have got it, but we don't realize what we have got. What he means is the capacity to sacrifice. The capacity to sacrifice is what he's calling as the gift which was given to you from birth. And with that capacity to sacrifice, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. He calls it in that verse as milch cow. Milch cow means a cow that gives milk. He talks about a mythological cow called Kamadhenu. And this cow has a power. If you go and ask that cow, whatever you want, the cow will give it to you. You're very hungry, and you go and ask the cow, hey, Kamadhenu, please, can you give me a Michelin star meal? Or a Michelin star meal? Granted. Straight away it gives you. You understand? So that's the cow. That's the beauty of that cow. It gives whatever thing. So you see that translation of that verse, uh, chapter 3, verse 10. the Creator having in the beginning, see that, the Creator having in the beginning created mankind together with Yajna sacrifice, said, by this shall you propagate. Let this be the milch cow of your desired objects. Whatever desired objects you want, you can get it through this. Through what? Through sacrifice. It's all symbolic. There's no cow. What he means by cow is that capacity to sacrifice opens the doors for you. You will achieve anything. Sacrifice is a synonym for success. Another word for success is sacrifice. Now, why I'm referring to that verse is because when you were born as a human being, the first thing that was given to you was sacrifice, this capacity to sacrifice. When you realize the self, when you achieve self-realization, you need to eradicate all desires. So what will be the last desire that will leave you is the capacity to sacrifice. Because you first were born with that capacity to sacrifice. The last thing that leaves you as an individual is the capacity to sacrifice. So if you drop that capacity to sacrifice, you lose your individuality, you become one with the self, you become the totality. Are you all with me? If you don't understand anything, please clarify. All these are important aspects. So if you drop that, see, in other words, what do? You start dropping your desires. Okay, as you evolve spiritually, you gain knowledge, you do your karma, bhakti, jnana, whatever you do, and you drop your desires. As you're dropping your desires, you spiritually evolve. Your desires becomes less, 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 less. And at the last stage, you've almost dropped all your desires, but you still have a capacity to give. You still have a capacity to sacrifice. That makes you an individual. So what he's saying here is, if you give up that capacity to sacrifice, the last desire, the last thought, then you will cease to be an individual. You will become Brahman. You'll become the totality. So that's what he means. Others perform sacrifice by offering sacrifice itself in the fire of Brahman. You're not just sacrificing anything else in the world. You're sacrificing the capacity to sacrifice, which is the last thought, the last desire. And when that is gone, you achieve self-realization, which is the absolute ideal. That is second yajna. So in this second yajna, the offering is what? What are you offering? You're offering sacrifice. The capacity to sacrifice, you're offering that. And what is being kindled? The absolute ideal is being kindled, which is Brahman. You're offering sacrifice and Brahman is being kindled. In the first yajna, limited ideal, what is the offering? Anyone? The first limited ideal, Yajna 1, what is the offering?
Body, mind, intellect.
Body, mind, intellect. Your entire personality, you're offering. All the faculties you have, you're offering. And what is kindled?
Limited ideals, goals.
What is that? What is kindled?
Happiness.
Happiness. Correct. Happiness. Because you're working for something that you want to achieve. It gives you that satisfaction. It gives you that happiness. So you're offering body, mind, intellect. The happiness is kindled. But in the case of the absolute ideal, you're not interested in worldly things. You only want self-realization. So for which you have to give up your individuality to achieve self-realization. And for which he says you give up sacrifice itself. It's another way of saying you're giving up your individuality. You're offering sacrifice, you're kindling Brahman. So see that the first and the second yajna. So first yajna of all the 12 yajnas, first yajna number 1 is limited ideal, offering BMI, body, mind, intellect, kindling happiness. Then second yajna is yajna of absolute ideal. You're offering sacrifice, kindling Brahman. Vijaya?
Hari Om Bhaskarji. I'm just trying to clear this in my own mind. This sacrifice to give the first offering during creation, is that, can I say that's equivalent to having a choice, a human being having a choice to choose? Is that equivalent?
A choice could be any choice, but here they're very specific. The capacity to give that particular aspect is what they're referring to here. With choice, you can choose anything in the world, but he's not talking about all that. He's talking about the fact that you can give, you can sacrifice. So you're born with that, and if you give that up ultimately, then you're giving up your individuality. So instead of saying give up your individuality, he says sacrifice, sacrifice. That's all. It's just another way of saying giving up your individuality.
I'm coming from the point of when I'm saying equivalent to choice, like human beings are able to choose what is good or what is bad in life. We are above animals in that way. So that's not an equivalent here.
That's not an equivalent.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's why how many times I'm explaining what makes you different. There are many differences between us and animals. Here we are talking about a specific difference, the capacity to sacrifice.
Okay. Thank you.
See, that's why I said this is subtle. It's not, first one is easier to understand. You're working for a goal in the world and you get happiness. Is that simpler? Second one is difficult because the presentation is unique. Nowhere else he presents it this way. You're sacrificing sacrifice itself, meaning you give up the individuality. Your individuality is gone. What remains is that Brahman, the totality. But make sure you understand it. Any doubts, just get it clarified. You may feel it's a silly question. No question is silly. Because if you don't clarify, then your understanding will not be complete. You will not be able to understand the rest of the portion. So first yajna, second yajna. Limited ideal, absolute ideal. Now you see the other diagram which I showed last week, the different circles. Mamta showed them that diagram, all the different circles, the 12 yajnas. So here, all the 12 yajnas are given in one diagram. In the middle, you see limited ideal 1, absolute ideal 2. Both these were covered in verse 25. Just now we studied. So number 1, number 2 means yajna 1, yajna 2. Then you see the other circles, and each circle has got a number. So number 3, that is the number of the yajna. Yajna number 3 is perception. Yajna number 4, restraint. Yajna number 5, yoga of self-control. 6, wealth. 7, austerity. 8, yoga practices. 9, study wisdom. 10, prana and apana. 11, inner strength. 12, external activity. So this whole process is where you're taking stimuli from the world, reacting, and responding back to the world. So it follows the three transactions: receipt, reaction, response. And as I go along, I'll be pointing out which of these yajnas fall under which category, which is receipt, which is reaction, which is response. But limited and absolute ideal has nothing to do with receipt, reaction, response. Is different. That's why it's not indicated in the circles. So limited absolute applies to all actions. You can either work for limited or an absolute ideal. Okay. All right. So now let's move on to the next verse. Verse 26.
श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्ये इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्ये इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति.
Juvati means sacrifice, to offer. So here in this verse, he gives two more yajnas. Others offer hearing and other senses as sacrifice into the fires of restraint. Others offer sound and other sense objects as sacrifice in the fires of the senses. What he means is different types of actions can be converted into a yajna. Different types. So first two we saw, relative ideal, absolute ideal. Now in this verse, he's giving us the yajna of perception. That's number 3. The third yajna is the yajna of perception. You make a note of all these things, and then as we go along, when you finish the whole portion, and then when you look back, you'll see how everything fits in. It won't fit in right away when you're learning it now. It'll take some time. That's why I said, each class we'll go back and we will revise what we studied in the previous class until we get it correct. So yajna of perception is the third yajna. And fourth yajna is the yajna of restraint. So number 3, number 4 is given in verse 26. Now, what is this yajna of perception? It's not difficult. So you all understand what perception is. It's a straightforward thing. Perception is seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, touching. That's all. That's all perception is. But what you may not realize is when a perception takes place, see here he's giving the example of hearing. Others offer sound and other sense objects as sacrifice. So sound, when you hear sound, how is it that you're hearing sound? You're hearing sound not through this fleshy organ, not through the ear. Yes, the stimuli goes into this ear, but you hear sound only when it touches the mind. See, a person who is engrossed in a book, is reading a novel, is reading a book, is engrossed in that book. At that time, you're talking to him about something, but he's so engrossed in it that he doesn't hear what you have told him. So what is happening there is the sound is hitting the ear, but he's not hearing it. Why? Because the mind is not in the present. The mind is elsewhere. So when the mind is not present in that action, you will not register the perception. So to register perception, the mind has to be present. There are what is known as sense center in the mind. In your mind, there is sense center. And when the stimuli goes through the ear, through the brain, and goes to the sense center in the mind, then you hear. Similarly, you see not through the fleshy eyes, but when the stimuli hits the sense center in the mind. So there are 5 sense centers in the mind corresponding to the 5 senses. Stimuli is coming in through all these sense organs. But when it goes into the mind and hits the sense center, then the perception is registered. Now, the first, Yajna 3, Yajna of perception. What is this Yajna? What he's saying is, when you hear that sound, suppose you are not concentrating. You're not concentrating on that sound. You're not concentrating on the sight. Then you will not register that perception. But if you're concentrating on that perception, you offer the sound is offered, and perception is kindled. You're able to hear it. The stimuli is offered, the hearing is kindled. Perception, you understand? You're able to hear that sound. Stimuli is offered, perception is kindled. It's happening automatically, but what he's saying is you convert it into a yajna. But if you don't concentrate, then you will not be able to offer the stimuli. So the stimuli is offered and perception is kindled. In this case, it is sound. Sound is offered, hearing is kindled. Sight is offered, seeing is kindled. This is yajna number 3, yajna of perception. You're offering the stimuli and you're kindling the perception. In other words, every time you see something, every time you hear something, you are converting it into yajna. You don't have to do anything exceptional. Normal seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, you can convert it into yajna. And then the fourth one. What is the fourth one? He goes one step further. He calls it as yajna of restraint. So what is self-control? Self-control is that you don't indulge in that perception. You're seeing something, you're hearing something that you like. You could indulge in that. How do you indulge in the perception? You indulge in a perception by lingering upon it. You have a mango, you taste a mango, you enjoy the mango. So sweet. This year, the mango season, mangoes are superb this year, very lovely, superb. So you have that mango, you enjoy the mango, enjoyment is over, you finish the mango, but you're lingering upon that enjoyment. So nice, it is so nice. We got to get another box now. This is so good. So the more you're lingering upon that enjoyment, What is happening? It's indulgence. That is indulgence, which is the opposite of self-control. Somebody's mic is on. So the yajna that he is telling us, fourth yajna, is that stop mental lingering. When you register that perception and you enjoy that perception, there's no harm. You can enjoy as much as you want, but don't linger upon it. Because if you linger upon it, you're increasing the desire. The desire is increased not through enjoyment, but through mental lingering. So in the case of the fourth yajna, the yajna of restraint, you're offering your perceptions and you're kindling self-control. You're offering hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, all these 5 perceptions you're offering, and you're kindling self-control because you're not lingering upon that enjoyment. You're stopping mental lingering. See how mental lingering happens. See this diagram where the sense centers are in the mind. You see that? Now, each of those circles in the mind represent the sense centers. And there's 5 sense centers corresponding to the 5 sense organs. The stimuli is coming from the world. That's the arrow. The arrow which is coming are the various stimuli. There's a stimulus for the eyes, there's a stimulus for the ears, nose, tongue, skin. From the world, all these things are coming into you. And when in this verse, he's giving the example of sound. That's why we've taken ears there. So when the sound hits the ears, and then the stimuli goes further and it hits the sense center in the mind, then you hear it. But then you indulge in that hearing, and that creates ripples. These ripples that you've created is mental lingering. You're mentally lingering upon that enjoyment. The lovely music I'm hearing. And this lingering is what increases the desires. Now, self-control, the definition of self-control was given in chapter 2, verse 64. He gave us the definition of self-control. And what was given there was, what is self-control? End perception with perception. End perception with perception. When you complete an experience, when you complete an enjoyment, don't linger upon that enjoyment. Finish it and move on to the next experience. End perception with perception. That is disciplined contact with the world. So he's like a child in a toy shop. The child goes in the toy shop. You say, darling, come on, it's over. Let's go, let's go. You can't pull the child out. You pull the child, again it wants to go back into the shop. You pull it, again it wants to go back. You understand? Same thing is happening to your mind. Your mind is like a child. So when the mind enjoys something and you tell the mind, okay, enough, it's done, let's go. No, I want to go back. I want to go back. That is what mental lingering is happening. The mind wants to keep going back to it. So you need one strict parent, yeah, to tell the child, "Hey, shut up and get out." And then the child goes. You understand? So similarly, you need to be strict with your mind. You give in to the mind, you keep on lingering and indulging in that perception. It creates more desires and it creates more agitation. Eventually, you lose the enjoyment. The way to gain enjoyment is only through self-control. Only if you are practicing self-control, you'll be able to enjoy it. Freedom is punctuated with discipline. Without discipline, you can't get freedom. Suppose a person eats whatever he wants, keeps on eating in his 20s, in his 30s, 40s. Suddenly, what happens? He's diagnosed with diabetes. He freely eats whatever he wants, but there's no discipline, there's no control. Once he gets diabetes, automatically he loses the freedom. He can't eat whatever he wants. You understand? So without discipline, without self-control, you lose your freedom. So if you indulge just because you can afford it, you indulge just because it is available to you, you suffer later on because of that indulgence. That's what is very difficult. What the difficulty is when it is available to you not to indulge. When it is not there, you can't indulge in it. A person in poverty can't indulge because the fellow can't afford. You can't say the person is practicing self-control. Poor fellow, you can't afford. But when you can afford and you choose not to indulge, then it's self-control. So that's the fourth yajna of restraint. You're kindling the self-control. You're kindling the discipline by offering all perceptions, by not lingering upon that enjoyment. So see that yajna number 3 and yajna number 4. Yajna number 3, yajna of perception. Stimuli is offered, perception is kindled. That's pretty straightforward, You're offering the stimuli and the perception is kindled if you're concentrating on that action. Then in yajna number 4, which is the yajna of restraint, you're offering all your perceptions and you're kindling self-control by ending perception with perception. So you see the first 2 yajnas, first was limited ideal, then absolute ideal. Now the third yajna is perception, which is the receipt of stimuli. You're receiving the stimuli. And now the fourth one is yajna of restraint, where there's a reaction within and you're controlling that reaction. You're controlling that indulgence. So slowly we'll get on with the other things. Before we get to the next verse, Utsha.
Hariom Bhaskarji. Bhaskarji, sorry, I lost my connection. Could I just see that last slide again, please, for a quick photo?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mamta. So yajna number 3 and yajna number 4. Yajna of perception and yajna of restraint. So go through this offering and kindling for each of these verses. If something doesn't make sense, you always come back and ask. Oh, I didn't understand what is offering here, what is kindling here. You understand? Okay. Nilesh?
Namaskar, Bhaskarji. So
Yes.
it seems
Ah.
this is going in sequence here. Yajna 3, the the kindling becomes offering for the next yajna. So for yajna 3, when our perceptions are kindled, they become basically, if we don't have control on those, if we keep lingering on them, they become basically the offering for the next.
No, if you don't control it, then you're not offering it. But if you're controlling it, then you're offering it, and therefore you're kindling self-control. It's in a sequence because of that receipt, reaction, response. Now that you know that is the basis for all these yajnas, that's why it's in a sequence. But it's not necessary that everything is in a sequence. Now, as we go along, it changes.
Okay.
But in these two, you're right. The kindling becomes the offering for the next one.
Okay, Bhaskar. Thank you.
But broadly, they follow receipt, reaction, response, the order. All right.
Yeah.
27.
सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वते ज्ञानदीपिते सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वते ज्ञानदीपिते.
Others sacrifice all the functions of the senses and the functions of the pranas, vital airs, into the fire of yoga of self-control kindled by wisdom. So he's giving one yajna in this whole verse. Only one yajna is given. In fact, when he's ending the verse, he's given us a clue already. He says, kindled by wisdom. You understand? So he's already giving us what is being kindled. So this verse is the 5th yajna, which is the yajna of yoga of self-control. In the previous verse, he used the word restrain, yajna of restrain. Here he uses yoga of self-control. Restrain and self-control are the same. The two words, essentially, they both mean the same. Whether you use restrain or... Now, the reason why they're giving two types is because one type of control is what you employ in the world. Say a person who's an executive in a company or a CEO in a company, he's running a major company, he has to take decisions. Now, he's invited to a party on Sunday night. You understand? Monday morning is a very important board meeting for him. So he decides, his intellect decides, listen, I can't stay long in that party. I can't drink too much. Otherwise, I won't be able to focus on the meeting next morning. So he practices control, self-control, so that he's alert in the morning to get into the board meeting. This is also self-control. You understand? But it's limited self-control. He's not controlling everything, only that particular aspect. Similarly, an athlete controls his eating habits, his exercises, everything to be successful. This is what is indicated in the 26th verse. In the previous verse, when he used restrain, he meant controls in the world. But a spiritual person controls all the desires, all the ego, everything to reach self-realization. That's what he calls as yoga of self-control. Yoga means union with the self. So verse 27 is a spiritual self-control. Verse 26 is worldly self-control. So in verse 27, what are you offering? You're offering all your desires. You're controlling your mind's desires, the extrovertedness of the mind. You're offering all your actions, all your functions, and you're kindling self-realization. Kindled by wisdom. Wisdom of what? Of the self. So you're practicing self-control in order to reach self-realization. I'll explain this further in the next class, but just you see that slide. What is yajna number 5? Number 5 is yajna of yoga of self-control. You're offering all functions, all perceptions, actions, emotions, thoughts, everything you're offering, all functions. You're kindling self-realization. I think you have to give enough time for them to take a photograph. When the slide is shown, they all want to capture that. Little time you have to give them. Offering, kindling. So once you connect these two things, then it becomes simple. You automatically see a yajna appearing. Okay. So there's plenty to think about now. You understand? So the 3 verses, that's why I finished this verse also, so that you have enough to think about. So the yajna portion starts with verse 25. So 25, 2 yajnas were given, 26, 2, and now the 5th one in 27. And then next week it'll become very interesting, because next week we are talking about different types of giving. The response back to the world. What are the different types of giving? We will be examining all that. So go through this. Anything that you don't understand, make a note of it and